I'm gonna say she's a 7.
Can't say that I remember rating walkers on hotness.
Isn't this the kind of stuff you and the Saviors used to do to kill time?
Besides, she's clearly a 3.
These two were Negan and his little fanboy, just as they were making darkly humorous remarks about the zombies. A faint cry for help echoed from a distance. Negan wasted no time and swiftly ran toward the source of the sound. The source of the voice turned out to be an abandoned bus. By the time Negan reached it, the cries had ceased, and there was only one zombie outside the bus. Lunging towards him, Negan grabbed the zombie and, with a knife he had on him, pierced the creature's head. Unfortunately, the knife also split in two down the middle. While Negan was frozen, there was a scream from inside the car. Someone was still alive. Negan took a big step onto the bus and witnessed the situation inside. The other zombies, alerted by the commotion, turned their attention towards Negan. Negan kills the zombie with the hilt of his broken knife. The woman inside clearly lacked combat experience. Negan strode forward, lacking a weapon. He pressed the zombie's head directly against the window, smashing it through with the window pane. The scene was momentarily gruesome and bloody, and the woman by the side was visibly shocked. A head appeared from the seats behind, observing the person who had come to their aid.
Damn! Classic Negan!
Negan looked back as if to say, "You're an idiot, aren't you?" After a brief rest, the woman shared their ordeal. They were a mother and son. A few days ago, their camp was attacked by zombies, and everyone died, leaving only the two of them as survivors. The woman sighed in helplessness, commenting on how there was no refuge in the apocalypse. She had been wandering with her son, joining various groups, but the outcomes had always been the same. After that, the woman was ready to take her son out for some fresh air. Staying with strangers made her feel a bit stressed, especially in the post-apocalyptic world, where the heart is wicked. Brandon, excitedly sitting beside Negan, asked, "Do you have any ideas? How about we secretly follow them to see where they stash their supplies? Maybe they have weapons too." Brandon picked up a tool from the ground, ready to follow them, but Negan pulled him back. Negan then diplomatically said, "I appreciate you following me all the way from Alexandria's safe zone to here, but the road ahead is going to get even more dangerous. It's best if you head back."
It's just, if I go back,
Yeah.
everyone's gonna want to know where I've been. What am I supposed to say? I've never been a great liar.
Negan laughed. The kid was obviously threatening him. Since polite advice fell on deaf ears, he was no longer polite. Negan's tone turned cold.
You go wherever the hell you want. You see, I don't give a shit.
Negan, once a formidable leader, always held to his principles, no matter the circumstances. Brandon was kicked out because of a difference of opinion. Brandon could only leave, angrily clutching his backpack. After a while, the young boy was playing outside by himself. Negan stepped outside and engaged with him in a very friendly and charitable manner. Negan is very friendly with the kids and always hits it off with them. He didn't condescend or lecture. Instead, he communicated with them on an equal level. He even used some vulgar language and shared examples and jokes to teach them various things. Slowly, the distance between them will be narrowed. For example, Negan is now teaching the boy how to deal with people with bad intentions. It might have been crude, but it had the boy chuckling, listening to Negan's instructions. The boy mimicked the finger movements, and Negan praised his natural talent. Which child wouldn't enjoy such an adult's company? That's the charisma of Negan. Later, Negan said to the boy, "The feeling of wandering outside can be tough. I know of a place where they might take you in. They have high walls and farmlands, and I'll do my best to get you nearby. But remember, don't tell them who brought you there." After a while, Negan went out to gather firewood for a hearty meal he planned to prepare for the mother and son before sending them to Alexandria's safe zone. Suddenly, Negan halted in his tracks. Having heard a whistle, he quickened his pace to return. When Negan arrived near the bus, the sight before him filled him with rage. Negan's face remained calm, but his eyes were burning with anger. The child who had been conversing with him moments ago was now lying in a pool of blood. Brandon, that bastard, wore a smug grin, believing Negan's earlier dismissal was just a test. After years of captivity, whatever Negan faces, he takes it in stride. But at this moment, Negan was truly furious. Not even during his clashes with Rick had he felt this level of anger. Negan picked up a stone from the ground. After dealing with the matter involving Brandon, he opens his backpack, slings the baseball bat over his shoulder, grabs his leather jacket, and starts making his way towards the territory of the Whisperers. Meanwhile, On a bridge, Aaron was swinging his sword to pass the time. He is coming out to search for Negan. As he continued walking, he unknowingly approached the boundaries set by the Whisperers. Suddenly, Aaron sensed some movement in the nearby woods. With fleeting shadows catching his attention, Aaron carefully ran up to check it out, then hid behind the leaves and watched. What came out were 2 zombies. But suddenly, the one who killed the zombies is Mary from the Whisperers. By now, several zombie bodies had accumulated in the stream. Mary used her knife to slash open the abdomen of one of the zombies, allowing its innards and blood to flow into the water. After completing this task, Mary made her way back to the Whisperers' camp. Alpha, who was teaching a newcomer how to skin a hide, immediately inquired about the task. Mary whispered, "I constructed a dam in the creek as you instructed. Can I have another zombie?" Alpha's purpose behind this action was to contaminate the water source of Alexandria's safe zone, making them vulnerable to disease and employing nature's means to eliminate them. However, the newcomer spoke up, questioning why they were taking such a roundabout approach and suggesting releasing thousands of zombies to kill them all directly. All eyes in the group turned towards him, though their expressions held a hint of pity because questioning Alpha's orders within the Whisperers meant only one outcome. Mary was trembling with fear. It might be her turn one day. Beta stepped up to finish the last cut. Now Mary has the zombie she wanted. She still brings it to the stream and prepares to bleed it out. But in that moment, her mind conjured up the image of her sister in that face, which was both approachable and ruthlessly determined. At that moment, Mary began to question her worth in their eyes. Would she meet the same fate if she said the wrong thing one day? Thinking about this, Mary feels guilty towards her sister. Just as Mary was lost in thought, the knife cut through her palm and fell into the stream. Suddenly, Mary became aware of movement across the creek. A man threw a bandage her way and assured her that he meant no harm. Mary's hand was bleeding profusely, so she bent down and picked it up. Aaron had initially intended to introduce himself and establish a rapport to gather information about the Whisperers' activities. But Mary simply turned and walked away. Paying him no mind, Mary returned to the camp and held out her hand to Alpha and recounted what had just happened with the man with the metal arm. Alpha didn't blame Mary but suggested that she attempt to communicate and interact with the man, as there might be valuable information to be gleaned. At night, Negan arrived at one of the Whisperers' borders and crossed straight over. Negan had it all figured out and was ready to join the Whisperers, but after a long walk Negan didn't see anything, so he decided to take a bit of a special approach. Then Negan started saying vulgar things to try to get the guys to show up. This phrase might sound familiar. It's something Negan said the first time he went to the Alexandria safe zone, which is kind of nostalgic. Somehow, donning his leather jacket and gripping his baseball bat seemed to transform him back into the charismatic and self-assured persona, as if everything was under his control. It's like the old Negan is back. Negan killed several zombies in a row. Just as he was preparing to strike again, a tremendous force landed on his shoulder, throwing him to the ground. The Whisperers are here, and if they don't come, these guardians of theirs are going to be killed off by Negan. The Whisperers are preparing to take Negan to meet Alpha. Along the way, Negan's mouth didn't stop talking and kept asking them ridiculous questions like whether the Whisperers were not afraid of zombies and whether they were wearing underwear. The escort party all kept their heads down, ignoring the babbling idiot. Beta, who led the way, couldn't take it anymore. He directly held his dual blades against Negan's throat. Seeing that the big guy was really pissed off, Negan whispered, "I'm sorry, big guy. My name is Negan. I've been locked up by your enemies for a whole 8 years. Now, I want to join you. So, take me to meet your leader, and I'll tell you everything I know." Beta slightly eased his stance and retracted his blades. Nevertheless, he used a blindfold to gag Negan. After a while, Negan was brought to the Whisperers' camp. Beta and Alpha briefly explained the situation and suggested that this smooth-talking man should not be allowed to stay. Alpha glanced at Negan and then told Beta to test whether he had the potential to become a Whisperer. If he passed the test, he could stay. If not, he would be killed. However, Beta opposed the idea, stating that allowing this man to learn about their way of life was a mistake. Alpha, increasingly irritated by Beta's repeated questioning of her commands, was not pleased. In order to prove his unwavering loyalty and determination, Beta kneeled down and swore that he would never challenge Alpha's leadership. Since Alpha gave the order, Beta took Negan to be tested. I was really amused by Negan's words. This guy is simply a chatterbox. Negan's incessant talking was truly getting on Beta's nerves. Beta was holding a fire in his heart, and if it wasn't for Alpha's orders, he really wanted to kill this guy. But Beta had to grit his teeth and ignore Negan for now. The so-called test involved Negan learning and performing the Whisperer's daily tasks to see if he could adapt. The first task was digging holes, and Negan casually grabbed a shovel and started digging, but he couldn't stop talking, and Beta was on the verge of losing it. This guy was a real oddball, aside from digging holes. Another classic The Whisperer's task is skinning, and Negan mimics Beta's actions and manages to skin a small piece. Negan had just spread the skin out when Beta picked up a chunk of it and placed it on the trunk with a provocative look in his eyes. Beta had a growing feeling that this smooth-talking guy might pose a threat to his position. Even when they moved zombies, Negan was exhausted from dragging one, while Beta effortlessly carried two and provocatively dumped them in front of Negan. Negan was beginning to realize that the Whisperer's tasks were no walk in the park. It's almost dinner time and Negan's next job is to kill the pig and cook it. Reluctantly, he followed the instructions. Negan rushed at the pig, wrestled it to the ground, and then stabbed it haphazardly. Approaching the dinner allotment time, Negan, not tired from the day's work, continued to chatter away. Just as it was about to be Negan's turn to receive his meal, Beta walked over and informed him that only true Whisperers were allowed to eat, and someone like him didn't deserve it. Negan, caught off guard, retorted, and this angered Beta. The smile on Negan's face disappeared. This guy has been picking on him. He really thinks he's a bully. Negan was about to go for it, but suddenly he realized that Alpha was looking at him from a distance. Negan calmed down, dusted off the dirt from his clothes, and his smile returned to his face. With that said, Negan quietly stepped aside. Since he couldn't eat with everyone else, he decided to find a place to sit. But Negan was a bit depressed. At this moment, the Whisperers with the bow and arrows, the one who asked Negan to kill the pig during the day, handed Negan the food in his hand. Negan, not one to refuse when he was starving after a long day's work, accepted the food, but Beta saw this one too. In the dead of night, Beta led Negan in the final test, guiding the zombies forward. Negan, this guy, he couldn't stop talking, even in the midst of the zombie horde. Negan was talking to the big guy about his Salvation Hall days, bragging about being the boss and all that. Since Beta is being rude, Negan responds equally without hesitation, saying, "You've got quite the personality, but I'm not here for you. I'm looking for Alpha. So, come on, test me however you like, and then take me to Alpha. What are you? I don't care." Suddenly the henchman with the bow and arrow on his back was killed by Beta, doomed to death from the moment he handed out food to Negan. With that, Beta turned and left, as if he had done something insignificant, leaving Negan amidst the zombie horde. Negan had no choice but to pull out a pocket knife to kill the zombies. Unfortunately, the blade broke once again. The next morning, Beta appeared before Alpha and reported that Negan, being too fragile, had perished without passing the test. But then a voice sounded behind them and Negan came back. Negan had returned, and he had proven himself through his actions. Negan walked up to Alpha. Negan officially joined the Whisperers. Negan would eventually become a prominent figure by Alpha's side.